Hello students, this lecture will be about the first chapter of object-oriented programming with C++ book, and in this lecture I will be discussing again the fundamental concepts of object-oriented programming, different features of object-oriented programming. We already discussed about what is class, what is object, what is data member, what is member function, what is encapsulation, what is data hiding, and we created class in C++. We created object, we called functions in reference to the objects. So in this lecture I will be covering the first chapter, so topic wise, because there are many students those who face problem while reading the book. So I am taking the C++ the object-oriented programming with C++ Balagurusamy as the reference book, as I already mentioned in the first video. So the first topic is the software crisis. What is software crisis? So let us have our screen where we can write and express. So the first topic what we are discussing here is the software crisis. So the software crisis, what is software crisis? It is the situation in the past when there were many challenges developing complex softwares, which was the demand of that time, and the industry, or the demand from the software industry was changing, and many expectations on software development was growing. So in that scenario, new tools, new technologies were required to solve those uh, problem, because many of the problem were real life problem, and the problem were complex, large, and there are many other challenges which need to be addressed, and there were no solution. So the software industry, they faced problem. In this situation, they are referring as software crisis. So in that situation there are many things which they had to resolve, like how to represent real life entities of a problem in the software solution. As I already told, that object is the real life entities, and these need to be represented in system here in our computer programming platform, but this was not available at that time, so this need to be resolved. This was the first thing, and there are many other things like the reusability. They are talking about reusability. So reusability is the situation where if there is a component in your program, and if you can use that component again and again in your program, so means you are reusing that component. In that case, it is very much beneficial, so you no need to create that component again and again in your program. So suppose, for example, this is the program, and here one component, the component number 1 is being used. It's a block of code, so we call it function, or we call sometime another component to it is a class. So if we can use that component 1 and 2 here, without creating that, we just will refer that number 1 and number 2 component, and this situation is called reusability. And there is another concept called, if there is a module 1, so you want to create another module 2, so you are taking the help of the module 1. In that case also, you are just actually reusing the component 1, and many other like features of component 1 in component 2. In this case, reuse. So reuse is a bigger concept in object oriented programming. So later on you will find there is a concept called inheritance, which is actually giving you the benefit to reuse many component, many things in object oriented programming. The concept is called inheritance. So there is another problem which need to be solved, is that mm, that when there is a change in the requirement, when there is a change once the software is developed, if anything to be changed later on, that change need to be can should be done very easily in the module, and easily and efficiently. And this situation, this thing should be permitted in software development. Otherwise the new things need to be like created from the sketch. So if it is better if we can change, if the making change is possible in the existing component, so that it can adopt, it can be used in the future changes. Then there are other things, the improve the quality of the software. Then developing the software in a particular time frame. And because if any software, when it is being developed, taking too much time, it is not good for the industry. So let us go to the next section. This was about the software crisis. The next section is talking about that software evolution. Software evolution means developing the software development process, evolution of the software development process from machine language to this object oriented model. We call it the evolution of software, software development, or the languages or the platform. So we started from we started from 0 1, that is called binary, that is machine language. And from that we go to the assembly language, that is your add, subtract. This way we sometimes call mnemonics. So in microprocessor class, you may be doing that assembly level programming. So this is not very user friendly, it's not high level, it's again the low level kind of programming. So here comes another programming language model, which is function oriented or procedure oriented. Procedure oriented method. So here we have example C in the previously. So let us discuss a little bit about procedure oriented programming language. Suppose this is your main function. So main function having many instructions, so from that you are calling another function. Suppose this is add function, add is doing something, and from add you are calling another function, suppose display function. So from display, from main you are calling another function called subtract function. So this the entire structure is actually based on functions. Function I already discussed in the previous class. Now let me give you an example. Function look like is a function. Suppose add is the function and it looks like this. These are the instructions to perform a particular task. Suppose subtract is the function, so this will look like this is the opening braces, and this is another closing brace. So let us give another example. So This was about function oriented programming language. Then the next is the object oriented programming structure, which is actually everything is not in terms of function, that it is function function function, but in terms of objects. So here you have one object, another object, another object. So everything, the program looks like this, that this object, they are actually related with each other and forming the pattern or the solution for any particular problem. So in this case, object oriented programming language, we focus on data rather than function. In object oriented programming, we focus on data rather than function, because we need to protect data from outside access. So if there is a if there should be a communication between objects, so that is done with perfect or the correct procedure, so that no data is in insecure position. So let us go to the procedure oriented mechanism. I already discussed in the book, it is there, the procedure oriented mechanism, that in procedure oriented programming language, you do not get the security of data. So here it looks like this is the main, and from where you are calling function 1, another function 2, like function 1 is calling function 3, function 2 is calling function 4, then 1 is calling 4, or this is calling another function, main is calling another function. So this is actually the structure of procedure oriented programming language. Any problem will be solved in terms of function, and in object oriented programming, if any problem will be solved with the help of classes and objects. So let us go to the next section. So in the next section of this chapter, first chapter, you will find object oriented paradigm. So I already discussed where some of the striking features of object oriented programming are discussed here. The first one is emphasis is on data rather than procedure or function. Programs are divided into what we know as objects. Means the solution is divided into objects, and the data structure are designed such that they characterize the object. Means any real life object directly be like mapped into computer system, and that data structure, that platform is providing you that. This is called object oriented programming paradigm. So let us go to the next section. Then there are many other features. Functions that operate on data of an object are tied together in data structure, and that is that we already discussed, the data and function together, and we call this object, and this process is called encapsulation. So another point is data is hidden and cannot be accessed by another external function. That this object 2, this is data and this is function, so this function cannot manipulate this, cannot. So this is protected, and only this function can manipulate this data.